Welcome to the Branded Impact Podcast. On this show, we go beyond surface level branding, honest conversations with industry leaders, behind the scenes of aligned brand building, and actionable insights to help you elevate your presence. I'm your host, Jo Espejo, aka Jo. Hit subscribe and join me each week for the Branded Impact Podcast. Welcome back to the Branded Impact Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Dianne Kosto, a mission-driven founder who turned her personal journey to save her son into a powerful business through helping others through brain regulation. We're going to talk about how she scaled to $500,000 in revenue by speaking in the right rooms and what happened when her core industry collapsed. Now, in the middle of a major brand pivot, Dianne opens up about simplifying her message, shifting from B2C to B2B, and building a brand that can grow with her vision. If you've ever felt like you're close, but something still isn't clicking, this episode is for you. Dianne, thank you so much for joining me today. Can you start by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you're the most passionate about in your business right now?
Sure. I'm just grateful to be here with you, Jill, and talking about branding. Um, so I'm grateful for this pivot that we have, this opportunity to really reinvent things, even though we're still kind of new, and to do what we can to overcome the obstacles that we hear from the markets out there. So we're launching this 100% done for you service right now, and it's pretty exciting.
And that came from you trying. So you did at first, I guess, let's kind of jump into your company and tell me a little bit about why you even started it. And then I want to jump into how you had to pivot because that was something that I know from our previous conversation. You were B2C and now due to
Right.
changes and all that stuff, you've had to shift to B2B. But let's take a step back and first tell me, why did you even start neuro? And it's a mouthful and I'm sorry. I'm
I
trying to
know,
remember.
that's okay. I wish we could
It's
have just said symmetry,
Neuro-Pathway.
but
Yes.
it's
So start with your business name and why did you start it?
yeah, so SYMMETRY Neuro-Pathway training.
That's
Um,
it.
many, many years ago, more than 14 years ago, my son was just struggling and getting kicked out of every different school and program that existed that I could put him in. We'd do private school, homeschool, boarding school, military academy, and I'd get the phone call, he's not following the program. You need to come and get him,
Man.
literally. And so, as a single parent, I was just pulling my hair out and picking up every different book and doing every different parenting thing I could, trying to figure out a way to help him have success. And none of it was working. From the time he was about 5 years old until he was 12, going on 13, he ended up in a school for quote unquote troubled teens, a residential facility. And
Okay.
so he's in there, and I'm like, all right, I tried to avoid this all of these years, but now he's there with the people that know how to help him. And a few months into that, I get that same call from the founder of the program. We love him. He's a genius, but he's not following the program. What are we going to do? And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me at this point. I'm out of options. I don't even know. And right then, whatever you believe in, God, the universe, miracles, I was introduced to the founder of a neurofeedback company. He had just been a year into business trying to make it easier for chiropractors to bring in this brain training technology. Um, and I was like, that makes sense. There's something going on here. This is a little more than the norm for my kiddo. He had no pause button before reacting to his environment. And so I went through the training after speaking with that doctor, and he trusted me with a system. And I drove across the country and set it up in that therapeutic program. And it literally saved my son's life. So it wasn't like I planned on getting into the neurofeedback world or the um, world at all, but my son needed it, and that's why I'm a mom on a mission. And we're doing this as a company to help other families avoid all of those years and all of the extra expenses and the trauma that we went through trying to find an answer and a solution to help him. So that's
So
how the company started.
give me a little bit of a layman's terms on, so I'm hearing like they're being identified as like a troubled teen or a troubled child. You mentioned reacting very quickly to so they're like the 0 to 100, right? Is I guess maybe how people
Yes.
describe it, right? Like they go from everything is fine to like blowing up instantly. But what are some of the things that this neurofeedback, because to be honest, before we chatted, I didn't even know it was a thing. So, what does that do? How did that help? I guess,
Yeah,
with your
so it
son?
just it obviously there was no pause button in his brain. He did that 0 to 100, and there are a lot of people out there that get labeled with ADHD or impulsivity or oppositional defiance disorder and all of these labels, but really it's a pattern in their brainwave activity. It's how their brain communicates. And whether what caused it, there's a lot of different reasons that it could happen, but there it is, and we can use technology to measure those patterns in the brain and to actually teach the brain to better regulate itself. It's a non invasive process where we're just measuring the brainwave activity and you're watching the screen. And that screen is going to reward the brain to produce healthier patterns. So you'll be able to see the movie better or brighter or hear it better when your brain produces a healthy communication pattern. And then it'll go dimmer or quieter when the brain is not producing that healthy pattern. And by repeating that, we teach the brain that healthy pattern. It's just like when we learn to ride a bike or write with a pencil. You practice and practice and practice, and pretty soon you're doing it without thinking about it because a new pathway was created. So that's what it is. It's using a technology to just help the brain learn a new thing, a healthier pattern. And it
That
saves lives.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
And think about all the people that don't know about this, and then, like, the number of children that are medicated or, just I
exactly.
feel like medicine is always a quick answer, or, like, the kids that, you just get labeled and then that's it, like, they're and it's not that they wanna live that way, and I can imagine that it's frustrating for the child just like it is for anybody outside in that influence, and then as a mom, watching your child go through school after school after school, and then not being able to build relationships and being labeled in a certain way, and it's almost I find it amazing, and it's not that they're alone, like, so many moms are on a mission to try to find a way to help their children, or they've become adults now, and they don't even know how to help themselves because this is just how they've grown
Exactly.
up and they just got labeled different, right? Like, well, it's just chalking it up to this is how I have to be. And now what you're saying is that there's an option to retrain. It's a habit. It's creating, I love the pathways of it. But basically, what you're saying is you're retraining your brain on how to react in situations. That's amazing. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, this
I
is
know. And
mind
so I
blowing.
didn't either for all of those years that we went through what we went through. And it's so funny to me because now I've been in the field for like going on 15 years. Um, and it's still something that's not mainstream, which just to me that's crazy, because like you said, the first thing is let's medicate them or let's label them, and this should be the first thing. We should try to regulate the brain before we start labeling people and diagnosing them and handing them prescriptions that we don't know what's going to happen down the road with. So
Right.
that's why we do what we do.
That's amazing. I love that. And so, okay, so you were on a mission, you discovered this thing, and then you decided that you were going to turn this into a business because
Yes.
obviously there was a need. So, what are some of the things that you did to start to get your name out there? Like, how did you take this concept and then turn it into revenue? And then now you've grown and you've been in business for a long time. And we were chatting, and it's no small feat, although I think you didn't realize. Because I think when we talked, you're like, I don't even know if I can be on this podcast, Joe, because I'm not successful. And I'm like, okay, well, I've gotten to $500,000 in revenue. And I was like, I'm sorry. Who doesn't think that's successful? Because I'm sure there's
Yeah.
plenty of people listening to this podcast that right now are like dreaming about the day that I can get to 500,000. So tell me about some of the first things that you did in the beginning to really establish your brand. And then we will get into the pivot. And we chatted about how Molly and you've got people on your team now who are really honed in to making sure that your branding stays on point. And I love all of that. But in the
Yeah.
beginning, what are some of the first things that you did? How did you even get to, because you've obviously
Right.
found some success.
I
How are you getting
did.
your name out there?
Yeah. In the beginning, it was so frustrating to me that nobody had mentioned this before. So I got in front of parents that were in the situation that I was in. I presented to parents and I found places where I could share with them my experience. And that went over very well in the beginning. And a handful of years um, into it, I had multiple offices along the East Coast, from Utah to Boston down into South Carolina, and I was trying to serve all of these individual families in these different locations. And then I realized I need to go into those schools, into the programs like where my son was, And I feel like we froze up here, so I don't know if I'm still
Yeah,
online or
I
a
see
little.
you.
Yeah.
I see you
Uh,
talking, but there's a little bit of a delay. So let's see if we can let it catch up.
okay.
Yeah, it looks like you may be. So say a few more words for me.
It's been all kinds of technology things going on, and I am in Estonia right now in a different country.
Oh, that's
So,
amazing.
did
Well,
that
it
catch
looks
up?
like you may have caught up. Yes, I can. Your mouth is moving with the sound now. So
Okay. So
taking
I
back.
started with all of these individual offices, and then I was like, wait a minute, these schools and these residential programs where my son kept getting sent to because he got kicked out of traditional schools, they need this. And so I went to that market, to that therapeutic programs, and got off to a really great start right before COVID hit. And even within a year or two after COVID, we did very well because, I became known and presented, and they understood it, and they were trying to help these kids anyways. But then that industry has suffered greatly.
Mm.
So, um, but let me tell you about a little bit about my branding story when I first decided to go into that market and I got my SYMMETRY logo. I had a wonderful experience with this company in Bluffton, South Carolina, where they sat me down and asked, why are you doing this? What is your purpose and your mission behind it? Who are you? And they asked, what are your favorite colors? Like what kind of themes do you like? Do you like more contemporary or more traditional or what, and they just walked me through like all of these questions, which it was one of the best experiences I ever had. And then they just came back with just a couple different choices of a name and of a logo. And it made it so easy for me to just say, nope, 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 nope. Yes, that's the one I like, or no, 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 no. Yes, I like that one. And that's when SYMMETRY, the logo and the name is long. We wish it could have been a little bit shorter, but just because it's a common term, we had to add the Neuro-Pathway training after it. But that was like really one of my best business experiences was sitting down with that branding company and getting the logo and everything started. Um, and then my next best experience has been working with Molly, my lead creative, who's on here with us, and keeping the branding consistent and keeping my voice out there. So
So what have you found as far as because you really believe in that? That is something that you've got somebody that's on your team dedicated to making sure you stay consistent. Why? Why do you find it powerful to be consistent and making sure that your voice is the same and you've got a logo and you've got the colors? So what has been your experience with that?
I just figured the little I knew about branding, being consistent is important, but also because I am a layperson in the field, I have to be really careful what we're saying and how I'm explaining what we're doing and not going into a medical field without a license, and making sure people understand that this technology is non-medical. It doesn't have to be um, performed by a neuro guru, and so like it was very important on a couple fronts, just being that lay person in the field looking to help multiple families and having that consistency and just being very clear and very cautious too, because in a sense there's a target on my back because there are some people that want this field to continue to be very exclusive and very complex and very, you know, niche, I guess. And
Yeah,
there's people like me.
specialized.
There's too many families out there that need it for me to let it stay like that.
I love your heart behind it. And I think for me, the importance of branding and the consistency is that once you start to get that recognition and you build the trust and you have that, they know, and you built locations all over. So it wasn't just if you're local to this town, you know who I am. And then as you're building the locations, I'm sure it was key that the one in Utah versus the one, you say Baltimore down to South Carolina, that when they walk in, they knew they were going to get the same experience, the same trust, the same everything as the other location so that you can
Right.
it's the branding falls outside of just the scope of like your logos and your colors. Like it's so much more. It's what am I getting? What's the experience that I'm getting? Can I trust these people? And so you found that power. Now, one of the things that I find interesting is you mentioned, your the industry that you were serving. So you started out as B2C, so going directly to the consumer. And then you realized that there was an opportunity to start diving in to those, I guess, was it like the ulterior education options? But then that's been shifting. And so now
Right.
you're pivoting again. And you're not looking at it as like, well, that's it, we're done. You're looking at it like, okay, well, challenge accepted. How am I shifting and how am I pivoting again? So that's where we find you now. So you've decided I have, and I am still on a mission to make this accessible to the masses. It doesn't have to be a specialized thing. It doesn't have to be something that, is so high end. There's a technology and there's a way to help. And so now you're pivoting to go to B2C. So how are you getting into these markets? Because I feel like that's something that as a hurdle for certain people, like they don't even one, they don't even think about it. And then two, to pivot and then say, okay, it's a completely different strategy, isn't it? Versus trying to go to the mom versus now you're
Yes.
going to there's certain providers you mentioned that you're trying to align with and you're trying to offer services. How did you determine who do you even start with? And then how did you approach them?
Yeah. Great questions. How do you determine who? So we were trying to think of where are those end users? Who are they going to? Who are spending the funds on things that aren't just traditional prescriptions that they could get written and, filled at their pharmacy. So we're looking at, biohacking, longevity clinics, chiropractic neurologists, high-end gyms, things like that, where people are investing in themselves and not restricted to just what the MD said and what the pharmacy will or insurance will cover, because it usually is not covered by insurance, unfortunately, at this point. So that's what we started to look at. Where are those end users that we can at least start with them, because they're willing to invest in themselves and they're looking for things like this. They understand there's a lot to the body, and the brain is an important part of it. So we analyzed the different potential markets like that. And then we really think about how can we communicate to them? What do they need? What are their pain points? They're looking to attract more clients. They really want to help their clients. They want to show measurable results, and so we're thinking of all of the different things, and they're running out of time to do everything that they're doing. They can't learn a whole nother profession. So that's why we came up with the done for you 100%. Let us just come in and provide it for your clients, and we'll split the proceeds with you. So I've
That's
overcome like every different obstacle along the way to come up with this next version of what we're going to offer and get it out there.
I love that. So it's all of the things. It's meeting the pain points, but then really capitalizing on a mindset check because you're coming to places where people are willing to already invest and they're open to a whole different line. So that's like that homeopathic. So it really just comes down to the foundations. Who are you going after? Who's your target client? Like, who are you trying to serve? And then you just shifted it where you're like, well, instead of going directly to the client, I'm going to go to where they already are. And then I'm going to leverage
Yes,
that partnership. And so you're building strategic partnerships with people who are already serving your ideal client. And you're not competing, you're offering a solution that's going to help them overall.
you got
I
it.
think that's brilliant.
Well
Brilliant.
said. Yes.
I love it. So
We
then
think
I
it's
think
brilliant too, and we will let you know. I mean, we're only going to like open it up to like 27 locations here in the next year, and we're really going to master those locations and reach as many people as we can.
so why 27? Just curious. My my
That's a,
my brain goes there. Why
you know,
27?
somebody else asked me that. Why did I pick 27? I think it's our capacity, and I was like, I think it was my projection of where I wanted the company to be, anyways. And so that was the growth that I wanted to have over the past year. So let's have that growth now.
That is really strategic. And I think that's a shift that a lot of people forget and seem to miss. It's almost like we get in this path of like, we just want to grow and we just want to scale. But you hit something on the head that's like, what is your capacity? And what are your goals? And how do you get there? And I love that you're like, I'm not going and saying I'm trying to be in a million locations or 100 locations. You're looking at your team and your capacity. And you're like, we can serve 27 is our number. That is how many we can go in, we can serve, we can create this done for you experience. I'm assuming these are the conversations that you had as far as like in a way that we want to, that we can provide the ultimate piece, learn, establish some systems in a manageable capacity. Because if you're trying out there, and I love 27, I don't know why, like, why not, the difference? But that's so smart in the strategy as far as like, let me scale in steps and let me get this first. And then once you establish those 27, and when that is running really, really well, I can imagine that you'll then be able to open up the floodgates and be like, all right, well, this is how we can duplicate this. And if we bring on this many more assets or team members or whatever the case may be, then we can grow by a next number more. Am I on the right track with where you're
Absolutely.
going with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll prove that,
So
and that we can still have the high standards that we provide now. We'll prove that we can still do that with the 27 locations, and we'll show those businesses that we're serving their clients and we're giving them things that they need without costing them additional overhead or extra education or buying expensive equipment. We're going to prove it through those 27, and that will propel so that we can grow exponentially after that.
So, what are some of the things that you have done? So, you've already had a name, which is great. And I think, did that make it easier for you to approach some of these people because you kind of already had, you were established, you had some brand, I guess awareness is really the right word I'm looking for. But even when you have brand awareness and you're trying to shift in the market, so what are some of the first things that you guys did? And whether that was Molly or one of the other people, but like when you're looking at approaching this new venture, what were some of the first things that you did as far as like, did you take a step back and you're like, first, let's make sure we have XYZ in place and then we'll go and approach? Or did you kind of jump in and then figure out what you needed on the back end? I'm just curious as you're diving into this new realm,
Yeah.
like how you approached it.
I'd love Molly to jump in whenever you want to, Molly. But we're always taking a step back and looking at what we're saying and trying to simplify it, which has been a big
Okay.
challenge in the field. And so, like almost every other year, we're taking a step, looking at it. Okay, what are we saying that we can say in less words? And we can communicate even more clearly. And she's been tasked with a lot of that, of trying to continue to get our message out there, but simplified and clarified, and especially for this new Done For You program. Molly, do you have any
So
input on that and our approach?
I do. I feel like it's really, really listening to what they're saying, but then diving a little bit deeper because, say, for example, a pain point is I don't think my clients will pay for this experience. I don't think they'll pay for this. They're already like one spending X amount of money, say it's like a kid. That's already been through multiple therapeutic programs, or they've already invested thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands, or maybe their retirement on it. I, as a provider, don't want to ask one more thing from them, or
hmm.
or it's an older person, or it's anyway, just that ask for the money. But I think what we like have dug into is like, that's probably not true. Maybe the real thing is you're not confident about how to talk about it because it is new, right? So we've got to educate you on how to talk about it so that it's the layman's term so that you feel very comfortable, and that you don't go outside of, as far as counselors or therapists go, outside of your scope of care, that you're staying within those ethics of like,
Mhm.
this is what I know how to do. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to step out of here, and these people aren't going to pay for it anyway. And then really diving deep into to being able to show people pay for braces for their kids, people pay for weight loss drugs, people pay for cosmetic surgery, people pay for travel sports for their kids, and they invest thousands on that, right? And we're asking for a spin to say, let's find out what's going on with your brain. We haven't even hit four digits with that, right? And we're saying, take a step back and look and ask, just teach them how to ask that simple question. Let's find out what's going on with your brain and see how that correlates with everything else. So really digging deep into what really is the problem versus what they're telling us is the problem.
Well, I think it's trying to figure out how to meet them at where they think they want. And then this is what you think you want, and then this is what you really need. So then trying to find that balance between if you take money out of it, and then what is, what are the desires? Because we do speak to pain points. And we know that that can
Mhm.
be a trigger for some people, but then sometimes too, just as triggering or even more of a motivator is the picture of the desire that they want. So what is the desired outcome? And when you start to paint that picture and you're like, this is where we can get you, like in a world where your child isn't going 0 to 100, where we can eliminate medications, where we can eliminate the frustrations, the turmoil, the whatever, and then putting them in a path that they can regulate better themselves, which is opening up doors for a much healthier life in general. Because these problems don't stop when they become adults. You may not
Mhm.
have the issues with school, but now you're dealing with a whole lot more of volatility, right? Like this
Yeah.
isn't just something that they outgrow. I think this is something that coping mechanisms change. And then now we're looking at how much medication or how much trouble are we in versus, getting called and it's mom to like, where does it stop? Where does it end? So I think it's awesome that you guys
Yeah.
have found a way to start to reach. And I admire the fact that you guys have pivoted and then you pivoted again. And then you're like, listen, like you are on a mission. You are not going to be stopped by one hurdle or another. And that's entrepreneurship, guys, for anybody. You've gotten a few more obstacles to overcome because you're also in a world where it is usually regulated by medical with the doctor's
Mhm.
license. And I get it. Like you do want to control those aspects of it, but you're not providing a solution that requires a medical license. And
Right.
now you're trying to find a way to dance with them. Like, listen, we ultimately all want the same thing. We want the child to be better. So if
Right.
we can find a solution that like can help without the medication, ultimately isn't that what we want? Because these medicines all have side effects, don't they? Like I think all medicines do. It's like we solve this issue, but now we've just given you 10 more. So
Right.
pick your poison. I don't know what you want. Well, what are some of the things that you foresee? So I know launching this new option, aligning with some of the stuff, do you have any locations lined up already, or is this 27 still new? Tell me where you guys are and what's kind of coming up next.
Yeah. We have some trainings that are just about to be confirmed here in Texas for our first couple locations. Yeah. So, and expanding a little bit in Utah as well. So,
That's amazing. So if anyone's been listening and they're intrigued by this, what would you say are your top 2 or 3 strategic partners that you're looking for? You mentioned it earlier, but it was very quick. So if you were to say, we're focusing on, like, we would love the next 25 or 24 locations to be X, Y, and Z. What are those?
yeah, they're going to be businesses that are serving people that aren't dependent on insurance, that are willing to invest in themselves and alternative type treatments or what's considered alternative, like real things that actually work for people, you know, longevity clinics, biohacking, chiropractic neurologists. We're open to still helping the residential treatment facilities that are out of pocket as well, because they still respond, the ones that are doing well and are still open and in the business. We're all about that because they've got the captive audience as well. So we're willing to help them too.
Awesome. So if you have been listening and you know of somebody or you in that space and you are interested in reaching out to Dianne or Molly or her team at Symmetry to be able to learn more about this, maybe offer it as a solution in your space, where can they find you?
SymmetryNeuroPT.com is the website.
Awesome.
That's
And
where it's been.
are you on social media?
Yes, Molly, I think we're on all of them, right? And it's usually at Symmetry Neuro PT.
They can be found in all the things. Confidently, they are on all the platforms at Symmetry Neuro PT. We'll also include that in the show notes. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to do a quick rapid fire just for fun and fast. And what is one tool that you can't live without? And we joked about how many tools you have, but is there a one that you have found that you're like, this is it, I can't live without it?
Basecamp.
Basecamp. Okay.
My
And what
project
does Basecamp
management
do?
software. It's project
Okay.
management software. I've run my company through it. It's awesome. That's
Love
mine.
it.
Molly
Basecamp.
will have a different one because she's the creative.
Molly, do you have one that's your favorite?
I have my yes, my
Chat
assistant
GPT.
Sage. That's what I call my chat. Yeah, it's like it's my assistant. She's my confidant. She like helps me start to brainstorm, develop it, and then say, "Hey, you're going astray. Let's come back in," or vice versa. Yeah, Chat GPT and Canva. I mean, it's a really like it's a basic tool, but it's a really great tool for pretty much anybody. It's
Mhm.
very user friendly.
I love that.
I don't know what we would do without that in Midjourney.
I haven't heard of Midjourney.
I think hey,
I think,
yeah, it's awesome. It's an image creator. It's an AI image
okay,
creator, but with neurofeedback, like finding finding images that like really fit our brand and our story, it's really tricky. They're few and far between. They're getting to be more, but we want our real things using it so we can get some AI stuff to be able to help us add those components of sensors or headphones or something like that that wouldn't have been there
got it.
before. So it's been very
Yeah.
helpful for us.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so many different great tools. And what did we do before Canva? I mean, really, and ChatGPT. I feel like there's a world where we used to write things on our own and have to think all on our own. And now we have, I love how you've named your Sage. And then I think, guys, ChatGPT can be an amazing tool, but you have to train it. And please don't just
Yes.
copy paste. You have to read it. You have to make
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
Because ChatGPT has a mind of its own and it will definitely throw some curveballs in there sometimes. But I definitely think it's a fantastic tool. Okay, so one last one, Diane. What is something that you feel makes someone stand out as a brand today?
Oh my gosh. That's a tough one for me. I just
Okay.
I think of things like, and I wonder because I don't know this. I don't feel like an expert in the branding and marketing field. I feel like that's my weakest area as the company leader. But I wonder, how did these companies like, how did Kleenex become the Kleenex of tissue? Why do we call a tissue a Kleenex? Like I want us to be that in the neurofeedback world, but I don't really know how that happens. I wish I could answer that.
Well, and I think so that seems to be, I'll help you kind of circle back because not everyone is a brand expert. And even with those of us that are in the branding field, I would love to be the synonymous for something, but doesn't always work. But for you, then what makes a brand stand out is that there's resonance with they are known for what they do. That's
Mm.
what they've managed to become known for the solution. So you, whether or
Okay.
not you're competing with Kleenex, right? Not so much, but you said you would love to be known for being able to help in the Neuro-Pathway world and what that means, right? Because, I heard Neuro-Pathway and I was like, cool, that sounds fun. I have no idea what that
No
means.
idea what it is.
So right, but then it's being able to become known for what you do and what you serve, and I think that is truly the definition of branding, and I think that's where for me, I am so passionate about what I do because there are so many people out there like you who have a gift and who are on a mission and they have a service that can really change lives. Now it's just a matter of helping the world know that you exist. And the
Yeah.
right people, right? Like the moms out there and the dads out there who have a child or even themselves that are going through and have been living with this challenge to know that, hey, there could be an option that can help. We can
Yeah.
help retrain your brain. That's amazing. I didn't even know. Well, I really appreciate all of your time, ladies. Thank you for joining me. And I really hope that anyone that's been listening that has been impacted in some way will take a minute to share this, either with somebody who could benefit as a user or help Diane and Symmetry. I'm going to get your name wrong again. Symmetry Neuro-Pathway reach their goal of getting into 27 different locations that can serve similar clients and really make an impact in their lives. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Joe.
That's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Branded Impact Podcast. If today's episode sparked something in you, please take a second to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend who's ready to unlock their rebrand era. And if you're ready for a brand that's rooted in authenticity and built for impact, one that truly reflects your story, your energy, and your evolution, let's connect. head to brandingbyjo.com or DM me on Instagram at brandingbyjo. Thanks for hanging out. Now get out there, show up with purpose, and make your branded impact. I'll see you next week.